Yeah, so, yeah, the most, hello? Yeah, yeah, sure. The most interesting part comes now, yeah. Yeah, so before we start, generate the correct motivation, yeah, that we do this in order to prepare for that, but also, yeah, to use that knowledge to help others, also to prepare, and then, yeah, all the way up for those who have interest in Buddhahood, for that purpose, right, yeah. So generate correct motivation. Yeah, so the death process, that's what we're going to talk about now. Yeah, so we know we're going to die, we know the time is uncertain, and we know that only our state of mind is of benefit when we die. Yeah, so that's kind of what we call the three roots of the contemplations on death and impermanence in the Lam Rim text or the Lam Rim literature. And each of those three roots has three reasons. Yeah, we saw, for example, that death is definite. Why? Because you cannot escape it. Yeah, you cannot go to a place or depend on a doctor or medicine or the most powerful persons in life, the most powerful world leaders or physically most powerful people. You know, who can push. I don't know how many kgs can they push. How much? 100, 200? Huh? 200? 300? Wow. But then when you die, then they cannot push that away, right? Yeah, so that's Bruce Lee. When I was into martial arts when I was young. So yeah, there's this kind of physically strong people. Then when you die, that's it. Yeah. So that means that kasa. You cannot escape it, even if you're a very strong or powerful leader or physically strong. Yeah, you cannot escape. Yeah, that's one reason. The other reason was that the time, death is getting closer rather than going further away, and the death is not waiting for you till you finished something or something like that. Right? It's just when it's time, it's time. So that is definite, and then the time is uncertain because of three reasons we saw, right? That there's no guarantee the moment you're born. There's no guarantee how long you're gonna have, right? On this planet at the moment, and then kasa. There's so many causes and conditions that causes death rather than that sustains life. Yeah, and the body is just like a water bubble, very easy to pop or to to just the whole system collapses. Yeah, that's the second point of that the time is uncertain. And then the third point we just meditated before the break is that only your mental development is of benefit when you die, because you have to leave possessions behind, you have to leave your friends, your family behind, and then you have to leave even your own body behind. Yeah, so there were the three reasons for proving that. Yeah, so. So then when you die, it's very similar to when you go to sleep. Yeah, we're going to talk about the dissolutions and things like that. So when you fall asleep, you notice sometimes that you slip or something. You sink in the cushion, something like that. You have ever felt that? Yeah. So before that, you already close your eyes. So before that actually happens, you don't see anything. That's pretty clear, right? Yeah. And then the sound stops. You know, when you're really cautious, when you fall asleep, then the sound becomes far distant, stops. Yeah. So that's kind of, and at that time you have this slipping experience, or you fall. You know, and that's a sign. You know that elements are dissolving, as we call them. Yeah. So. The similar happens at the time of death. Yeah, so there's various stages you go through, and then just to get first the overview before we go into details. So then, most of us don't really recognize that, but just before the dream comes, then the mind is a very blissful state. Very similar to when you sneeze. You sneeze sometimes? Yeah. So when you sneeze, there's this kind of, we don't have control over the sneezing, but if you had control over the sneezing, it would be quite interesting. Because that mind is just a glimpse of clarity is there in the mind, or kind of bliss. It's very short. Yeah. So that similar thing happens just before the dream comes. So most of us, including myself, you're tired, you go to bed, you knock yourself unconscious, and then you wake up in the morning, and that's the night, right? But there are practitioners who use these different levels of consciousness, because consciousness becomes more subtle when the sensory perception stops. Right? First you don't see things anymore, then you stop hearing things, smell and taste, tangible aspects. It's just the sensory perceptions, they become dormant. Yeah, when you that's another aspect. We talked about the continuity of consciousness, right? So we have 6 types of consciousness. Yeah, we have the 5 senses, yeah, and then we have mental consciousness. So in mainstream neuroscience and cognitive science, mainly they just examine sensory perception, right? But mental consciousness is, from the point of view of Buddhism, most important, because sensory perception is extremely limited in its perceptions. Yeah? Well, mental consciousness you can develop. We talked about Olympic meditators, right? That's all done with mental consciousness. Yeah? So mental consciousness is important. When we say only your development of mind is of benefit, then we talk about the development of mental consciousness. Yeah? So that's, for us, very interesting. Sensory perception stops, becomes dormant. Yeah? When you fall asleep, you don't see things anymore, you don't hear things anymore, unless a person starts shouting and you wake up. But normally it's little sounds you don't hear when you sleep, right? So that means sensory perception stops. And that's no issue because it's limited anyway. But mental consciousness never stops. Yeah? There's dream, and there's more subtler and coarser states of mental consciousness. And we also saw that the intention or the state of mind you have at the time of falling asleep and at the time of waking up, there's a correlation between those two. So that proves there's a continuity of moments of consciousness, right? In between falling asleep and waking up. Yeah, so that means that consciousness never stops. It's this endless stream of moments. Yeah, for those who haven't studied much of Buddhism, I can tell you something very interesting, which probably is very mind-boggling. There's no beginning. There's no end. Yeah, it's kind of very principal aspects of Buddhism, that there's no beginning of consciousness and there's no end of consciousness. Why is there no beginning? Simply because we cannot find a beginning. If you can find a beginning, you say, okay, look, here, there's the beginning. But there's no beginning, because every moment of consciousness is produced by its previous moment. And that previous moment is produced by its previous moment. And that previous moment is produced by its previous moment. And that previous by its previous. So you cannot find a beginning in the continuity of consciousness. Yeah? Matter is very similar. The Big Bang is not really a Big Bang. It's a big bounce, right? It's very clear. Yeah? Like Sir Roger Penrose, he got a Nobel Prize for Physics in 2022, I think, right? So he also said it's a big bounce. It's not a big bang. It's a big bounce. Even the start of our universe, as we say, is not really a start. It's just a continuity of previous states of existence of matter, right? So in matter also you cannot find a beginning. There's always something before that. Of course, molecular structures, they change, but the fundamental aspects of matter has been always present since beginner's lifetime, right? Also, when you look in the universe, tonight maybe not in the UK, or not here, but people, I don't know where you live, but if you live in a place more remote and you look in the sky when there's no overcast, you see the stars, and then you think, so there's your homework, okay? Then you look at the stars and you think, is there an end? Is there a kind of a wall somewhere? and say, okay, here's the end of the universe, or not? That's a question, you know. So then you probably look in the sky and you see, there is no end, right? Because we always think in boundaries. Our mind is very much in boundaries, you know. This life, and 1 month, and 2 months, and a year. But actually, the reality is not like that. There's no boundary. In the universe and in consciousness, there's no beginning, there's no end. Yeah. So if there's no beginning, interesting. If there's no end, then you might ask the question, oh, if there's no end, that means that my consciousness continues, right? So then the interest comes to develop it, yeah, because we can develop. We say there's no end of consciousness, but there's an end towards the contaminated aspects of the mind. There's an end towards the afflictions of the mind. There's an end towards disturbing emotions of the mind. That can be stopped. Yeah, and that's very interesting. And that's, the Buddhist practitioner is mainly interested in that aspect, to stop the disturbance of mind and to develop the more qualities of the mind. Yeah? So then you can stop, completely eliminate every form of anger, every form of obsessive desire, every form of disturbing emotions you can eliminate from their root, from their seeds. Yeah, that's not the topic of today, but then you know the background of the Buddhist thought, right? That we're interested in that development. Yeah, and then we try to develop our mind over a long time. So then when you try to prepare yourself for dying, a good way to do that is when you go to bed in the evening. Yeah, not to get nightmares or something like that, but just to think, oh, I'm going to die tonight. Yeah, and then you lay in this posture, as I just explained. If you're really kind of interested, you can also close your left, because that's your right nostril. But yeah, that's a bit complicated for people who fall asleep. Maybe you don't fall asleep then. Then you just do put your hand like that, and then your right hand on your, left on your left thigh, and then you try to fall asleep with a positive state of mind. That's important. Yeah. For the Buddhist practitioner, then there's a possibility of imagine the Buddha is here, or your teacher is here, and is helping you, or you dissolve your mind into emptiness, and you think about emptiness, or you generate bodhicitta, you know. So there's various techniques. Yeah. But yeah, in a secular way, try to generate a positive state of mind. Yeah. That's so. If you do that every evening, before you fall asleep, you build up an habituation pattern in generating positive states of mind with the same discriminating factor, oh, I'm going to die now. Yeah, so if you do that on a regular basis, then when you die, it's easier to think in a similar way, because the habit is there, right? Yeah, so that's kind of what the hardcore Buddhist practitioners do, so to say. They prepare themselves, you know, in the death process. Yeah. So, and also, you know, if you're not really interested in these things, still, if you do that sometimes, it helps you to be aware of the death process and prepare yourself. Yeah. And then, when the death process comes, you are not really disturbed by it, because that's important, right? Not to be disturbed. So, if you're on a regular basis, you know, get used to that idea that you are dying and generate positive state of mind, and then fall asleep, and you do that on a regular basis, then when you actually die, then you have that habit, you know, so it's easier, you know, to do that when you die. Yeah, so then you fall asleep, or so I said before already, falling asleep, very similar to dying. Same as we go with dissolutions, very similar. Then the dream state is very similar to the bardo, or intermediate state. Yeah, so many people interested in bardo. I don't know if you're interested, but normally if you advertise bardo teachings or something like that, many people, oh yeah, wow, interesting bardo teachings. But it's going to happen to you anyway, if you know it about it or not. So, but it's more important to generate a good state of mind before going into the bardo. And that's why we put more emphasis on that aspect. Yeah? So we just talked about that already before. Because if you generate a good state of mind, it doesn't matter if you know about a Buddha or not, you just automatically go the right direction, right? And that's what we want to do, right? So it's very important to generate this positive state of mind, yeah? And then you're in the bardo, same as a dream, and then you wake up, and the waking up is very similar to rebirth. Yeah? So the correlation between falling asleep, dream, and waking up is very similar. Also with the dissolutions and things like that, very similar to dying, intermediate state, and rebirth. Yeah? So that's a very strong correlation between the two. For us ordinary beings, we don't really recognize it, but advanced Buddhist practitioners, they recognize it according to how it's explained in the text. They also see the visions and the dissolutions, what happens, because they train in the waking state with certain sophisticated meditations, and then they see that actually when they fall asleep and when they have a dream and then when they wake up, and then they can use it when you die, right? So I explained two of my teachers who I saw, but also a few others I've seen in that state. It's very inspiring. That they know exactly how to control the death process. There's very interesting stories about how they how they plan the next life as well. It's very interesting. That's one between Geshe and Lam Rim conversation. Very interesting. You know, if you are a being that wants to benefit others, right? If you have this kind of motivation in your life. The only thing what you care for is to help others. Then you think, oh, the next lifetime I have to get a body somewhere, and then I have to be reborn, and then help people with that body and things like that. So then they calculate when to die, because then in the future they want to be born in that area with those people, and of course, men and women have to meet, otherwise there's no birth, right? So then they calculate it all. Right? It's very interesting. Yeah. So some, Or they say, oh, where should I die? Geshe Tenzin, one of the great masters of Jamyang and the Mongolian Lama. He was getting old. He lived in Dharamsala many years, and then he asked His Holiness, where should I die, here or in Mongolia? And then he said that it may be beneficial in Mongolia. So he went to Mongolia and passed away there. So it's very interesting. They plan the future lifetimes, you know. In a quite a straightforward way, you know. It's very inspiring. Yeah, that because they completely control over these dissolutions, as we're going to talk about. Yeah, so maybe I just read from the paper, because otherwise I might forget some details when I just get excited about things. Yeah, it's maybe easier. Yeah, okay. So when you fall asleep, very similar, and you die, then you go through what we call 8 dissolutions. Yeah? And the 8 dissolutions are in relation with the elements dissolving and things like that. Yeah? So this comes from very secret teachings in the Vajrayana, but it's just the physical aspects that happen so that you can explain. Yeah? You don't explain the parts, but you can explain what happens, because it's very clearly explained in the Vajrayana, so that you can explain that. Lam Rim told me, to explain that sometimes to people. Yeah. So, so you fall asleep. So we already talked about that you feel this slipping, or, you know, being pushed into the mattress. Yeah. So that's the first sign. So when you die and you fall, you feel being pushed into the mattress, this kind of slipping away kind of feeling. That's a sign, what we say, the earth element is dissolving. Yeah? The earth element has to do with solid aspects, right? So like the body. Yeah. So that's the first step. That's the body from the external view. You can see that the body becomes a little bit thinner or shrinks sometimes. Yeah. And this can happen in a few seconds, but can also happen over days. Yeah, so these dissolutions, as we're going to talk about, for some people is very quick, and for others it takes a longer time. Yeah, so certain masters of the lineage, they recognize the first signs, and then they know where they are in the death process. Yeah, so it depends on the individual, it depends on the conditions of the body, if there's a sickness or not. There's many conditions that play a role. Yeah. So first, the body becomes a little bit thinner or shrinks, and also weaker. Yeah, it's much. Your capacity to use the body becomes less. Yeah, yeah. The eyesight becomes very unclear. Yeah, so you cannot really see clearly anymore, and to open and close your eyelids, also becomes difficult. Yeah, yeah. And then at one point of time in the dissolvement of the earth element, you cannot move your eyelids anymore. Yeah, so and things become very unclear. The outer world. So that's a sign that you're drawing within, right? Yeah, yes. As we have the sensory perceptions are very much external oriented. Yeah, we look at things, we hear things, and we smell, and we taste, and we touch, right? Very externally. When you fall asleep, sensory perception stops, and it becomes more inside. Yeah, so that happens here. Yeah, first. Also, when you fall asleep, first you stop seeing things because you close your eyes normally, right? But that is similar in the death process. Then you cannot move your eyelids anymore. So that's what happens, Then externally, you don't see things that much clear anymore. You can move your eyelids. Internally, we say you have this mirage appearance. If you have a hot weather above, a road, yeah, and then you see this mirage, right? Yeah, so that kind of appearance comes to your mind. That's an internal vision, right? It's not that you see that outside, but you see that inside with your mental consciousness. Yeah, we talk about here the visions we have is with mental consciousness, very similar to a dream. Yeah, if you dream, you see images and things in your dream, right? And that's not with your eyes, it's with your mental consciousness. Yeah, so here it's all about mental consciousness because sensory perception stops. Yeah. Yeah, so the first step is that the earth element dissolves, your body becomes thinner, weaker, you don't see things anymore that clearly, you cannot move your eyelids anymore, and inside you see this mirage, yeah, this kind of mirage appearance. Yeah. So that's the first step. Yeah, if you want to make notes, if you like, you can put that as one. Yeah. Then the second step is that the water element is dissolving. Yeah, the first one is earth. The second one is the water element dissolving. Yeah, or becomes less manifest. It becomes dormant. Actually, that's what it means. So when the water element dissolves, yeah, then your body starts to dry up. Yeah. So and then also. That your aspect of hearing things stops. Same with falling asleep. You close your eyes, and then, if you're really very conscientious about it, then you hear the sound and gone. You have that sometimes? If there's sound around you. I remember when I was a teenager and we went camping with my parents in Austria, and then on the camping place, and then there's a tent, right? So you hear the conversations like it's next to you. Yeah. But then when you fall asleep because you're tired from walking in the mountains, then you see the sound and it's gone. Yeah. So that happens also when you die. Yeah. That first you don't see anything anymore, as we just saw, and then with the second, when the water element dissolves, your hearing, ceases. Yeah, and then stops. Yeah. Yeah. Then your feeling of the body, your sensation of the body also stops. Yeah, at that time. Yeah, so then you can see your relationship with the external world is becoming less. Yeah, because you don't see things anymore, and you also start hearing things. Yeah. So and then internally you see smoke. Like if you have a valley. I don't know. Sometimes you see, when I go to a retreat center in the north, in Kasa, Land of Joy, and sometimes in winter, the farmers, because it's very remote, they still have some wood stoves, right? So then this Kasa smoke stays in the valley, so that kind of but you're inside, right? So that appears to you. This is the smoke appearance. The second, when the water element dissolves, you stop hearing things, and the body feeling ceases to exist. Yeah. Then at the same time, internally, you have this appearance of the smoke. Yeah, the smoky aspect. Yeah. Okay. So then the next, that's number 2. Then the third one is when the fire element dissolves. You know. Then you forget the life affairs. Yeah, that you forget you can't remember the names of people anymore. The discriminating factor is getting less, so you don't remember the names of people anymore, and you don't, you just completely start to disconnect with the external world, right? Yeah. So the life affairs you forget. You go more internal. That's what happens, right? Yeah. So life affairs stops. At the same time, the inhaling aspect is very weak and exhaling is very strong. Yeah? That kind of, if a person is dying, then we sometimes see that, right? The inhaling aspect is very short and the exhaling is very long. Yeah, so that's could be also a sign if you're close to a person who is dying. This sign can also help us to recognize that a person is in the dying process, right? Yeah. So you can't remember names. Your inhaling is weak and your exhaling is very long, and strong. Yeah? At that time, the smell stops. You can't smell anymore. Yeah, the smell ceases to exist. Yeah. The fire element. Yeah. So internally, so you more or less turn inside, right? Because you forget the affairs of this life, you go inside. So internally, you see fire sparks or fireflies. If you see fireflies sometimes, they go like that. The fireflies. Those flies who have light. Do you have them in the UK or not? No? No. Yeah? Not very often, no? No, it's like warm weather or something like that. Yeah, also not very often. Yeah. When I lived in South India, near Mysore, for about more than 2 decades. It's like, it rains a little bit in the monsoon, but for the rest it's like blue sky and 28 degrees and little breeze, And then I told my friends, after I became Geshe, I told them, I'm going to a place where the sky is grey and the buildings are grey. Yeah, so referring to the UK. I hitchhiked when I was 18 or something in university. We hitchhiked from London to Edinburgh and back for 2 weeks. I think we had one afternoon, a little bit of sun. A summer. Yeah. So fireflies, maybe not that many. But yeah, or sometimes when you, also fires, we don't make fires anymore these days, but if you have fire and you poke the sparks, they come. Yeah, but it's not only going up, it's a little bit dancing, aspect that you see. So after the previous vision was the smoke, right? So now you see these fireflies, the sparks going, like that. So that's the fire element dissolving, yeah? So when you see that, then now it's getting closer, yeah? Then the next point, 4, is that the wind element dissolves. Yeah, the wind element dissolves. So at that time, the breath stops, Yeah, so that's a bit, scary. But even some meditators have that same experience. It doesn't mean you're dying, but the breath stops. When your mind becomes a bit subtle in concentration, then sometimes stops. But here, in the death process, it stops. Yeah, so your breathing stops. So the mind goes really inside. So the connection with the external world is almost gone, right? And now when the breathing stops, then you're completely inside. And you can't move your body anymore. And that's probably sometimes you might experience when you wake up. When you're in a dream, and your sensory perceptions are still dormant, then sometimes you have in a dream you want to escape, but you can't move your body. You have the feeling sometimes? You're locked. Yeah, so, and then it takes sometimes a few seconds or something, then you can move. So that's the same, because when you wake up, it's a reverse process of these points. Yeah, so it's similar. Yeah. Okay, so when you die, then the body you can't move anymore. Yeah. And taste and touch also ceases to exist. And at this time you completely lose awareness with the external world. Yeah, you're completely withdrawn inside. Yeah, so that's happening there. So then you don't have connect with the external world anymore, you're completely inside. Yeah. Then the appearance you have is, sometimes we say the dying butter lamp or the dying flame. Yeah, you're not very familiar with butter lamps, I suppose? No? Yeah, but to give you an idea, you know, if you have a butter lamp is made out of copper, you know, this is referring to, you know, copper, this reddish kind of material, yeah? Yeah, you know, right? Yeah. So if you have a light inside, you know, if you have a copper ball like that, and you have a light inside, and just the light goes a little bit brighter, then it reflects in the copper, and that reflects into the surrounding area, right? So that's kind of the sign that you see at that time. Yeah, often we say dying butter lamp, but actually what it means is when a butter lamp dies, the last moment there's this little bit of last part of the wick that just, how do you call that? Sparks, yeah, but not the sparks, just becomes a bit stronger, right? And then you have this glow of this, because there's no butter anymore, only the copper is there, right? So then you have this glow of the copper coming out. Yeah, so it's about the glow, it's not about the butter lamp. Yeah. So the glow is there, yeah, this copper like glow, so to say. Yeah, so that happens. So you're completely inside. So then there's all the physical aspects are stopped. Yeah, all your sensory perceptions is gone. Yeah, you only have mental consciousness at this time. Yeah, so you're completely inside. So people outside think you're dead. Yeah, you're actually dead, but consciousness never dies. You know, consciousness never dies. Yeah? The body dies, but consciousness. So at this time, because breathing ceases, then the doctors say this person is dead, right? But actually, you're not dead, because consciousness is still in the body. Yeah, we had a case in South India. One lady, she had a heart attack in a rickshaw, and she was a Westerner. So the police had to know what the cause of death was, right? Yeah, so they have to do autopsy. Autopsy, say, right? Yeah, yeah. And but Lama Zopa Rinpoche checked. Lama Zopa Rinpoche is, you know, one of the founders of this organization, very highly realized being. So he checked. He said, "Oh, Namdak." He called me once in the middle of the night. I mean, not middle of the night. It was like 11, 12, something. I said, "Namdak, the person, you know, the consciousness is still in the body. They cannot do autopsy now. You have to do POA." Rinpoche said. I said, "Okay, Rinpoche." And so then one of my friends was organizing the paperwork for the autopsy, you know, for the embassy, and, you know, people have to know, right? And he couldn't get it done. There's so many obstacles, you know. It took, I think, a few days. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche was creating those obstacles, because Rinpoche said, you know, you cannot do autopsy now because the consciousness is still in the body, you know. So then the consciousness left at a certain time, and then they could do the autopsy, right? Yeah, anyway, it's a very interesting story. Yeah. So these high realized beings, it's so interesting. They completely control over not only their own mind, but they also know what happens with the minds of others. Once there was a person, this is really a Buddhist joke, but I mean, it's not really a joke, but how they think about death, you know. So one person, unfortunately, one of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's students, he died in a motor accident on his way to Goa. I don't know where he came from, but in South India. And Rinpoche knew that, and Rinpoche had helped that person's consciousness to send them to Pure Land. There's also, we didn't talk about that, but maybe that goes too much. Anyway, so then Rinpoche took care of that consciousness of that person, and Rinpoche didn't worry about it anymore. Rinpoche knew that person is fine. The body, the person died, but the consciousness is somewhere which is completely fine, so don't have to worry about that. Yeah. Then one person came inside the middle of a teaching. She didn't know Rinpoche knew about it. So she came in the middle of a teaching and said, "Oh, Rinpoche, this person died and we have to do prayers and da-da-da-da, this, that. And Rinpoche already did and took care of the consciousness. And the Rinpoche said to the lady, "What? He died? Oh. And how did he die?" She said, "In a motor accident, that. And the Rinpoche said, "On his way to Goa, right?" Yes, on his way to Goa. So he didn't make it to Goa then. So Rinpoche was just joking about it, and, because Rinpoche knew he already helped that consciousness to go to a good place. So you don't have to worry anymore. Right? So very interesting. So certain high lamas, they not only in complete control over their own minds, but also they can help others and shoot their consciousness somewhere. Right? So I was not planning to talk about this actually today. It was maybe too much. Yeah. So forget, delete. Okay? Yeah. Delete out of your brain. Yeah. So we keep it more serious, kind of normal. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So now at this time, when the wind element dissolves, when you have this dying butter lamp, then you consider it as being dead. Yeah, from the external world. There's no breathing, there's no heartbeat. It's clinically dead. But according to the Buddhist science, you're not completely dead because the consciousness is still in the body, and that's why there's no decay in the body, as I mentioned. A few cases in India, and there's cases of a few days, there's cases of a week, 2 weeks, a few weeks even. Yeah, it's very interesting material. There's 13 cases being measured, if you're interested. Richard Davidson and others, they put a lot of EEG caps, in the different camps. In a case that somebody passes away and realized Lama, and then they measure. Yeah, so we have 13 cases, and that research has been published. That are 13 cases of the of the clear mind of death meditation, of Tukdam. There's also a movie called Tukdam, if you're interested. And they state in that research, there are no measurable brain activity being measured. It's very interesting. So clinically, according to the medical science, the person is dead, but there's no decay in the body, which is a very interesting phenomenon, right? Yeah. Okay, so then the conscious is still there. So next, now there's no much physical things happening anymore because you're completely inside. Yeah, so that was number 4, right? Yeah. So now number 5 is white appearance, we call it. Yeah. So the white appearance is kind of in a similar way as if you have an autumn sky, maybe not in the UK, I'm not sure. An autumn sky, very bright, no overcast. Yeah. So think about nice sunny India, and then yeah. So there's a brilliant white appearance, like moonlight. If there's full moon, if it's full moon and there is no clouds, it just pervades, right? You have this kind of, it's quite light, Yeah. So that kind of appearance arises to your mind. Yeah. So after that, there's the red appearance. Yeah. So the red appearance is similar to when the sun sets in autumn. Then sometimes it sets in a reddish way, Yeah, so then if you look at people, then people have even the reddish glow on their body from the sun setting. Yeah, so that's kind of the reddish glow that is inner sign. It's not with your eyes, right? This is all with mental consciousness, right? Yeah. So yeah, that reddish kind of appearance. Yeah. So after that reddish appearance, then darkness comes. So darkness, this means there's no light. Everything is completely dark. And there's 2 aspects to that. The first aspect is you're still conscious. The second part of it is you're unconscious. Yeah, so you lose consciousness. Yeah. And then, after that, the clear light comes. There's like sun and moon at the same time. Yeah, very bright. And there's no up or down or left or right or boundaries. It's everywhere. It's kind of without boundaries. Yeah, that's kind of what happens. So this is what we call the clear light mind of that. It's a very blissful state. Yeah, and kasa, a very bright light. Yeah, then that's exactly similar to that. When people who experience a near-death experience, they often go into a tunnel, and then there's this darkness, and on the end of the tunnel is this bright light, you know. So that's very similar to what we talk about here, you know. Yeah. So Gaza, the clear light mind of that dawns. That's the last period you in this body. Then, when that finishes, then it goes in reverse order, right? You go into the bardo in reverse order. So yeah, you go from, if you have enough points, if you came to 8 points, yeah, then you go from 8 to 7 to 6. Huh? 6. Huh? So you have white appearance, red appearance. Yeah, sorry, each one's one. So after the dying flame, right? Dying flame was number? The bottle lamp, sorry. Yeah. 4, everybody okay? It was 4, agree? Yeah? Okay, 4. Then the 5th one was white appearance. Yeah, this autumn sky filled with the moonlight. Yeah. Then the 6th one was red. Yeah. Then the 7th one was darkness. Yeah. 2 aspects to darkness. First 7a is conscious, and 7b is unconscious, right? And then after that, the clear light mind of that comes. Yeah, you see that? 8, no? You got it? Clear light, 8, yeah. So the clear light is this blissful state of mind. So when people have a near-death experience, they go up to here, and then the doctors, they try to, revive the person, and sometimes they say things. There's one case, it's so interesting. That a person was in this process of dying and clinically dead, and they use CPR, and then one of the doctors said, "Come on, come back, you bastard," and then he came back, and then because he was out of his body when they were doing CPR, and then later on he told the doctor, he said, watch your words next time, because you said this and this and this, and that's not nice. Because with his mental consciousness, he saw what's happening. It's very interesting. So that means there's no measurable brain activity, but the person has mental consciousness and knows what's going on. Very interesting, right? That's from the aspect of mind-brain mind-brain relationship is extremely interesting phenomena. Yeah. Okay, so then most people who come back, they can talk about similarities to this. Yeah, in the near-death experience. Yeah, but if they go beyond this clear light, and they go from the clear light to darkness, and from the darkness to red appearance, and to the white appearance, and the dying flame, and the sparks, and the smoke, and the mirage, then they out of this body, right? As soon as the reverse process starts, you go into the bardo, right? Yeah. So then you're in the bardo, and then in the bardo you are there for either a second, or for 7 days, or for 2 weeks, or up till 49 days, we normally say. So that's why if people who passed away, we say it's important to do at least a prayer for them every week. Yeah, because in the bardo also they die and be reborn sometimes inside the bardo. So that's why we always have the tradition of every week, and you see that in many other cultures and forms of religion, this pattern of 7 days in the dying, in the bardo state. Yeah, so then it's good to do prayers on the 7th day after they passed, and then you repeat that until 49 days are gone, and then in most cases people have taken rebirth. Yeah, have taken another rebirth in different places. Yeah, so that's next life. Yeah, so that's next chapter. Yeah, another Not a day. Yeah. Okay, so that concludes today, maybe. So then, yeah, that's a bit of a presentation of the meditations of death. Yeah. I didn't do the meditation on the actual death process because a few of you are a bit new. Maybe it's a little bit too much if you imagine you dying and things like that. But yeah, you can do that later, right? Yeah. So the main important thing is to prepare us for that, to recognize that it's going to happen, and not only just to happen, that the time is very uncertain, and the best way to prepare ourselves is to start preparing us now, right? So that's why we try to prepare our mind in this process, yeah. And then we don't have to worry too much because we prepared. You know, that's if you develop kind of good intentions and you put some effort in that direction, then you don't have to worry because your consciousness will produce its own future, right? We in Buddhism, we don't believe in a creator as such. We only believe we are our own creator. Yeah? That you produce your own future existence by producing the right states of consciousness that develops in the future. Yeah, so that's kind of where we come from. I mean, where we come from this kind of teachings. Yeah, and then if you're interested in the near-death experience, then also we have a video. I think they're still online, right? With Pim van Lommel, the dialogue. Yeah. So, yeah, Science and Wisdom Live. As we know, we have this project. We engage in dialogues with scientists, and there's one dialogue I had with Pim van Lommel. Yeah. I think from the point of view of near-death experience, the best research ever done up till the present day. So a very interesting dialogue. We talk about similarities between the Buddhist interpretation of death and what he saw in his research. Yeah, it's very interesting material. Yeah, so you can, if you're interested, look into that or look in other aspects of the near-death experience, or Stevenson, remembering previous lifetimes, or there's more material about how to prepare for death also online. There's a whole package created also by the FPMT and Lama Rinpoche, how to prepare for death with various practices that can be done. So that's all available and easy to access. Yeah. Okay, so that finishes this weekend. I hope there was some benefit in my blah 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 explanation. Yeah. So then, if there's questions, then we can do a few. Maybe first in the hall.
Questions from the
in back, number 2. Yeah.
Okay.
She also had a question.
Start from the back and work forward.
Thank you, Geshe Namdak. I wanted to just clarify, you said after the 8 stages, then it reverses, and then bardo. So you have the kind of, it's like waking, but then you're in the bardo.
It's kind of the dream. Yeah, so before your dream comes, you have this aspect of you thinking, and you stop seeing things, and you stop hearing things, right? So that process of the 8 dissolutions happens when you fall asleep. Then when you get into the dream state, it's kind of a reverse order, but we don't really recognize that, ordinary people, right? Yeah, and the same in the bardo, it's very similar to that. Yeah.
So before you enter the dream, you have the reverse process.
Yeah.
And then you have it before you wake as well.
Yeah, and then same thing again. Then you have the process again, that just before you awake or before you're reborn, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of in sequence and goes in reverse. Sequence and goes in reverse. Like
Does that mean after bardo, then you have to like sequence again and then reverse?
It's similar, yeah. In the bardo, it's not very. I don't know exactly how it works, because this 8 dissolutions is in accordance with the human body, right? Yeah. So in the bardo, there is a similarity to that, but their body is not as our body. It's much more subtler body, right? So it's slightly different. Yeah. Yeah. And also these dissolutions, they happen, but it depends on. Because our bodies are slightly different from each other, so sometimes it can happen that 1 or 2 of these aspects, like the smoke and the sparks are reversed for some people. Yeah, so that's very clear in the text, also in the Kalachakra Tantra, for example. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for today. It's been really interesting. I felt doing those practices, I did feel as you suggested, I've got to do something now, I've got to live right now. That's really good. Yeah, and it was really like, okay, great. Yeah. So I want to take that into my practice now. Yeah. And I wondered if often, if there's some general recommendation for how to bring those things into your practice. I don't know, like other things I've done, you practice like this for a certain way, and then like this, and you do a bit of metta. If there's certain, Yeah,
I mean, it depends on your own interests, right? And what you want to do with your life. Yeah. So if you want to keep doing secular meditations and secular aspects of mind training, that's possible. But yeah, for those who are more inclined in the Buddhist path, then there's also possibilities of studying the Lam Rim, either by yourself or following a course, right? And yeah, that's all possible, right? Here in Jamyang we do various courses, or other places you can do courses. And that's important. I think if you really want to develop, then you have to put some effort in the education of it, right? So to understand the material, and then do some meditations on the side, and then you move in a direction, you know? Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. But yeah, we don't want to push things on people, right? It depends on your own interest and what you want to do with your life, and how much time you want to spend in these kind of things, right? Yeah.
Thank you for these precious teachings. Could we have now a teaching on birth, maybe for Easter?
Yeah, birth.
And my question is there a scenario where at the dissolution stage that the consciousness splits, and that somebody is born with half of the consciousness, and then somebody else has got the other part of the consciousness? And if that's the case,
or 10,
or whatever, or everyone, I don't know. But like, is there? My main question, I guess, is if that is possible, could I somehow use it for my practice?
Yeah. You want to have how many bodies do you like?
more just like if it's generally possible, if there's accounts of that.
So first of all, consciousness you cannot split. Consciousness is not physical, right? It's not local even. Yeah. Also, Pim van Lommen, very interesting. He calls consciousness non-local. It's a very interesting term, because we always think in matter aspects. So consciousness is not matter, right? So you cannot split. But there are many stories of and also in scriptures, very clear, at a certain level of realization in the path, you can have certain emanation bodies, for example. And in certain traditions, in the Nyingma, for example, sometimes you have body, speech, and mind incarnations of the same continuity of consciousness. So you have 3 bodies of one consciousness. It's not that a consciousness splits, it's just one consciousness uses 3 bodies. Yeah? Then we think, oh wow, 3 bodies, how is that possible? But yeah, in the scriptures we talk about if you reach a particular stage with this, in the sutra system even, that is kind of the first bhumi, or the first ground, you can have 100. On the second, you can have 1,000. Yeah, so there's various practices possible for advanced practitioners, right? And then certain advanced practitioners that use the dream body. One dream body to meditate, one dream body to teach, one dream body to study, one to memorize. If you can't do that, then things goes quicker, right? Because you can do a little bit more, you know. So those possibilities are there, but it's a very high level of development, right? Yeah. But that's possible. But it's not that consciousness splits, but it's just one continuity of consciousness, just using different bodies at the same time. Yeah. And showing different aspects. Yeah, that's maybe a bit too much for the people today, but yeah. And then sometimes 3 bodies or 3, then in a few lifetimes they 3, and then they become 1 again. I think. But yeah, consciousness, you have to know, consciousness is not local, right? It's not something physical. So that the limitations of consciousness are not like the physical world, you know? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Geshe, very much.
Yeah.
A question about accompanying somebody who's dying. How much do we interfere, or how much do we just leave alone? I mean,
I mean, it's good to do those prayers, right? That's very important, to do prayers before they die, and when they are dying, and after they died, right? And then at least every day, or if you can do every day, at least every week, right? For 49 days. And that's important, because that has an effect. A Bardo being has clairvoyance by birth, right? So many Bardo beings, they know we're doing something good for them. if we do that. And that has just a positive influence on them, right? And that's beneficial, right? But try to think, if it's out of attachment to try to be with that person, then maybe that's not very healthy. Not for you and not for the Bardo being, right? So that's kind of what we talk about, try not to have attachment towards that person, but think about the benefit of that person, right? That what's most of benefit for that person is the future development of that person, right? And that's what we have to pray for, and that's why we do certain practices. No? Yeah?
Sorry, can I ask just a bit more
Yeah.
about that? The other thing as well is sort of generally in our culture, people want to hold, touch, and presumably that's all around attachment. So to release oneself and sit back.
We see that even the bodies, when people die in the early days, there was no cremation. I think it was always how do you say that? Put them on the ground, right? Yeah. That we still have to have something there, right? In Tibet, the ground was frozen. There was not enough wood to have cremation. So what they did, it sounds very, how say, we call that? Macau? What they did in Tibet, because the consciousness is gone, it's just flesh and bones, they just cut it and gave it to the vultures. Yeah, so that's the only way, and then there's real detachment, right? Because then it's just matter that is left, and that's just being used for the benefit of helping other beings, like the vultures. Right? Yeah, because matter is constantly changing. Yeah, that our body becomes dust. Even in the Bible, we see that, right? Yeah, so that means there's a constant process of coming and going. Yeah, so that's very important to contemplate. Otherwise, we always hold on to things and have attachment, and then we still think they're with us, or we hope they're with us, and then we never can let go, right? And then still always has a kind of disturbance in our mind, right? Yeah. Because if you really think that we have been everything and we have connected with so many beings, then it's just a process of coming and going all the time. Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe.
Yeah.
In the first part of this talking workshop, you mentioned that the humans can go, I think, after death, either they go up
or down,
or they go down.
Yeah.
Can you maybe briefly
talk about that?
Expound a little bit?
I can, but maybe I don't do that. No, not joking. No, I mean, then becomes a very Buddhist kind of aspect, that you can be reborn, because every form of life, like animals, spirits, humans, gods, they all have consciousness, right? And we always think, but if you think about reincarnation, you think, but I'm always be human and I always be human, right? That's how we think, yeah. But just go back 40,000 years on this planet, and the humans were not as we are humans at the moment. And you think, yes, but that's 40,000 years. But 40,000 years is nothing in world evolutions of billions of years, right? So if you have the concept of beginnerless lifetime, and billions and billions and billions of years in each world evolution, then 40,000 years is peanuts. So if you're born 40,000 years ago as this ape-like person, because in those days there were no humans. So if you accept, first you have to analyze, is reincarnation possible or not? You analyze that. Then you think, because we grasping so much to permanence, first we say, no, not possible. Why? I don't know, but not possible. Then you analyze, right? And then you come to a conclusion, maybe it is possible. But then I always be human, I always be human, I always be human. But then if you really use logic and reasoning, if you go 40,000 years back in time, there were no humans like us. So where were you then? And then maybe it's possible to be this ape-like person, If that's possible, then maybe also other forms of life are possible, with the same continuity of consciousness, right? So if that's possible in the past, there's no reason why not it's possible in the future, because those habituation patterns are there, right? So those habituation patterns of all forms of life we've been is in our continuity, in the form of information or karma. And then in the future you can be born in those places again. Yeah? So that's why we say that you can go up or down, in the sense you can be born as human or as non-human. Yeah? And that's just, for us, difficult to comprehend, but we have to see why is it difficult, and what are the reasons behind it. Yeah, that's what I said. You don't have to accept anything in Buddhism. Yeah, we don't pressure things, but we like to emphasize to examine things, not just believing things. Oh yeah, it's like this, without reasoning. Right? So we try to see what are the reasons behind it, and does it make sense, and is it logical or not. Yeah, so that's very important to analyze. Yeah, if you believe it or not, that's up to the individual, and just see for yourself, check it out. What are the reasons for that it's not possible, and what are the reasons for it that is possible? Right? That's very important to analyze. Yeah? But the good news is that we can go up and keep going up. You know, that if you develop your mind and you create the right causes for the future, because that's what it is, there's nobody in charge, there's no creator as such. Our continuity of consciousness produces its own future moments, right? So that means that if you develop yourself in the path, as we say, then and you practice morality, for example, yeah, ethical kind of way of life, and you try to be a good human being, then you don't have to worry, because you go to the right parts of life in the future, you know. So yeah, it's just a reality we try to examine, but that reality is based on cause and effect relationships. If you create the right causes, the right results will come. That's how it is. So you don't have to worry, because you create the right causes for it. Yeah, so then it's kind of, if you really get faith in the law of cause and effect, and you live in accordance to that law of cause and effect, then you don't have to worry, because that's the real direction forward. You know? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, even in science, there's a lot of kind of, in the early days, that people thought certain species, they don't have consciousness, like certain animals, for example. But now it's very clear, Anil said, and others, very clear in neuroscience that it's been proven that, you know, even the UK government once, I think, they concluded that cows and things like that are sentient, right? Yeah, so there's an incredible development, right? So if they're sentient and they have consciousness, then what is the cause to become like that, or to become human, or where does consciousness go? It's because if you really analyze animals well, yeah, and I did it quite a lot with looking at the dogs in India, yeah, the stray dogs, very similar afflictions, very similar emotions than humans, you know, very similar, yeah. Yeah, anyway, there's just too much, yeah, forget it, delete. If you're interested, you can examine it, no? Yeah, if it's true or not, yeah. If you don't like it, you can just put it aside. It's very easy. I won't get upset. You just, if you don't interest in these things, that's important, right? In Buddhism, if things are too much for you, then you can just put it aside. No problem. And you just take things out that you find beneficial for the mind, right? Yeah. The Buddha won't mind. No, no. Yeah, joking. Yeah, but it's like that a bit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Geshe. We're a little bit over time, so maybe one more question.
She was holding her hand in the previous.
Thank you, Geshe.
Yeah.
I was wondering, as you say, there were no humans.
There were no?
There were no humans
on this planet.
On the planet.
Yeah.
And we've been everything.
Yeah.
The consciousness is never, there was no beginning.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how something like an amoeba, or even an insect, which is a lot more advanced than an amoeba, can develop any kind of altruism that could promote their development spiritually and get them out of samsara. Yeah. How could such a thing arise when we were creatures so low, and apparently we've been everything?
Yeah. Very difficult. Yeah, I mean, if you really think, if you just think on dogs and cats, it's very difficult for them to generate virtue, right? I mean, there's those blind guiding dogs, right? So, but they don't have really a motivation as such. They just train. It's a virtuous activity what they engage in, right? But most creatures, it's very difficult. If you look in wild animals, then you see it's even more difficult, right? But they all strive for happiness and don't want suffering, and that's very clear. Yeah, even a mosquito, when you know, it goes. It doesn't want to die. So that means that even mosquitoes, they have consciousness. And then you think, oh yes, but how is that possible? Because a mosquito is so small. But when you dive in your future mother's womb, when the sperm and ovum comes together, it's also very tiny, right? But the consciousness goes there and gets stuck into that. Yeah, so that's, anyway, that's maybe enough. Yeah, okay? Yeah, so for those creatures, it's very difficult to get out of that state unless they meet a holy object or a holy being who blows mantras on them. So that's why we always say it's good if you see insect or come in contact with insects or any animal or any other creature to make a prayer or recite a mantra for them, and then they make a connection, right?
So that's where we can also help.
Yeah, exactly.
We're helping ourselves at the same time by trying to benefit others, like a bodhisattva, and we can help them at the same time.
Because although we might not be realized right now, but if you make a connection with, an insect or an animal, and we make a prayer, I will become a Buddha, I will be able to help this person, now I've made a connection, I will lead them to enlightenment. And that's what the holy beings do. Lama Zopa once in Bulgaria took out of his upper robes, put on put all the windows open, and the mosquitoes was just full. And he was just sitting there like this, making prayers that I made a connection with these mosquitoes, and by that may I lead them in the next lifetimes to enlightenment, right? And then it happens. Same with the Buddha. You know, when we look there, the image there where the Buddha teaches the first 5 disciples, right? Those 5 disciples, there were 5 cups of a tigress. Yeah, so the Buddha offered his body because the tigress was hungry. He offered his own body and make a prayer. May I be able to teach them in the future. And then gives the body, and the cups became his first disciples, right? So that's how it works. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so don't go to the zoo tomorrow, but you can only do that when you're quite high realized being, right? Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. One more. 2 more. 1 more. Yeah.
At the point of falling asleep,
Mm-hmm.
Are you fully conscious? Because the
If
mind,
you fall asleep?
when you fall asleep,
When I fall asleep?
yeah, are you fully conscious? Because my mind starts to scramble, and that, I find that very disturbing. Like I can't hold it.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm tired
that,
and I fall asleep, then I fall asleep, and then, it's morning.
Okay, but you don't have like a sort of a conversation. Like, I mean, what should you be?
I mean,
thinking
I try
as you go to
because
sleep?
I
What
always,
should your mind be thinking, and then what should the first thought be when you wake up?
I always say,
precisely.
I always say it's good to generate correct motivation to people, but sometimes I forget myself.
So
But I try
focus
that
on
sometimes.
emptiness, and then so you're just.
I mean, in
meditating on
general
emptiness.
speaking, it's good to do that, right? Depends on what your understanding is. But if you fall asleep with bodhicitta or Tonglen practice, for example, if you're familiar with that, then it's a very good way to fall asleep, because emptiness is not that easy, but you can use that, right? But or you can meditate on taking and giving, right? Tonglen, and then also think at the same time. You doing the practice and the practice itself and your object of your practice, they are empty of inherent existence, right? And then if you do Tonglen in that way, then it's very sophisticated, and then if you train that in that way, just at the moment of that, then you be prepared, right?
And then when you wake up?
And then you wake up, and then you think that, before you stand up, you think, I'm going to work for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then you stand up. And for that purpose, I stand up. Or you just recite a short prayer, that refers to bodhicitta, motivation, for things like that, And then you start your day, and then you have the same night again. And you do that for a few years, and then you go move forward, right? Yeah? Okay.
Last one.
Very small.
Yeah. Very short.
Very short, I mean.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When earlier on you said that we die and we then reincarnate, or rebirth, reincarnate, is there a time between we die and reincarnate, or there's years or months, or it's timeless, or
there's time.
There is time.
There's in the Bardo is, generally speaking, a maximum of 49 days. Yes. So when the consciousness leaves your body until the next rebirth, generally speaking, it can be a second. Right? You can dive straight into your future mother. That's possible. But it can also take up till 49 days. Yeah. So that depends on the individual, depends on karma, depends on many factors.
That's very quick.
That's very quick. In one of the, that's a general thing that comes from the Abhidharma literature. There's one tantra which is quoted in the Lamdre teachings of the Sakya tradition, and there it says there are cases which makes a lot of sense. I think that it's a bit longer than 40 days in certain kind of cases, and that is completely in line with Stevenson's research of children remembering previous lifetimes, because he knows the time of death of the previous personality, and he knows the time of birth of the current one. So you can calculate, right? So yeah, if you look at those things, then it's very much aligned with these periods. Yeah. But it can happen that a person not reincarnated because in between it is taking the aspect of a spirit or something. That's also possible, right? Yeah, and then have a short life in spirit realm and become human again. That's also possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe. There's quite a few questions in the chat.
In the chat.
But a lot of them, I think, are, you suggested looking at the FPMT page because there's a compilation. A lot of these, I think, would be answered by Rinpoche's advice there as well,
Yeah, so maybe you can put it in the chat, or...
I can send in a follow-up email.
Yeah. So those who have more questions online, then, we're running out of time, and we have to, also think about that. Some people have to get home or something. So then there's a lot of material we will send to you, and links, maybe also Pim van Lommen's kind of dialogue we had, and material from Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, so you can look at that also. And then also there's many future opportunities here in Jamyang. We have various dialogues with scientists, we have various courses, we have various programs, so you can always connect, and also there are many opportunities to ask questions to whoever you like to ask to, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe.
Okay, so thank you very much for your interest, and die well. if I don't see you before that, and otherwise, see you soon, and then we can, talking about these things and other aspects of the path. So let's make just simple dedication then, because a few of you are a bit new. So try to dedicate or make a prayer that you have attended today's talks and discussions in order to prepare for that, but also think to become a better human being, or pray for that, or dedicate for that, and that all sentient beings may be able to do that. That we have world peace, harmonious relationships with each other, and all the way up to all beings generating bodhicitta, realizing emptiness, and achieving the state of enlightenment. So think in those lines where we recited 2 dedication prayers. Maybe 3. Janjo Sanjo Rinpoche Magye Panange Girche Gyaba Nyamba Mepa Yang Gone Gomde Bawa Sho Tomi Tawa Rinpoche Magye Panange Girche Gyaba Nyamba Mepa Yang Gone Gomde Bawa Sho Gyewa Gunde Yanda Lama Dame Chigi Palan Donji Sada Langi Antera Zone Doje Changi Kopan Yurto Sho. Okay, thank you so much. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.